Welcome back to the Padilla Family Homestead. Today we are in the middle of July and we are getting ready to start thinking about the fall/winter garden. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm here in Zone 9B in Northern California. I live in an apartment and I grow in 3 GreenStalk towers. And what that means for me is one, I don't have um, full sun all the way through the fall. Once we hit the summer equinox, whatever, we have the longest days. That's when I'm getting the most sun in my area. I can't really change where I have the planters, so it is as good as it gets. And what I can do though with my weather here is we'll still be hot in July and August. We're actually just picking up our heat in July. The first part of the month has been scorchers. We finally hit the 100 degrees. We've had 108, 109, 105. There's 110. Like, we've had some hot days. And so August is still going to be hot. August is kind of what we call the beginning of fire season here. And so the odds of there being higher smoke outside is pretty strong. And what we do is we know that the garden is going to suffer in the extreme dry heat here. We don't have really big humidity like back east. It is a very dry heat, and so the plants really struggle. Being in a container, being a container gardener here, I water anytime it's over 90 degrees. I water 2 times a day because the heat just sucks out all the moisture out of the planters. And so I water in the morning, and then I do water midday, and I'm watering through, because it's a GreenStalk, I water through the top and it just feeds its way through the bottom. And that way I'm making sure my plants aren't struggling like crazy, nothing's dying. But by August, a lot of stuff is usually on very strong struggle bus. So I like to have stuff ready to go after that August heat is over, and kind of be ready to pop it in to the garden outside and get it going. That way things are growing in the fall and then they stay in the winter, and I can have stuff growing outside all winter long. And so anything that you can pretty much grow in the spring, we can grow in the fall here as well. Last year was this last winter, because it was really this spring, was a really wet, cold spring. We had a really cold winter for this area, colder than we've had in a while. And so for us, we normally don't get a last frost. My last frost date used to be estimated like first frost. First frost was in December, and last frost used to be like February 8th. And this year it moved to last frost was in March, and first frost is in the end of November. So we'll see what it actually holds. I'm going to have everything frost tender kind of out of there by that point in time, except for no, my peppers. I'm going to let my peppers go as long as I can. That's the only thing that'll probably stay out there depending on how they're looking. And then once the frost comes, replace them out with something else. So we tried Brussels sprouts this last year. I don't think it was worth the space for the amount of time they had to be in the garden. For what they produce. I did get a lot of greens, but we're definitely not going to put out as many Brussels sprouts as we did this last year. I'll put them out there because my daughter loves Brussels sprouts. So if I can get her some good homegrown Brussels sprouts, that would be amazing. We are going to start them earlier this year. And we're only going to put them on the top of one planter. So we'll get that planned out. So we're going to do that. We will be growing lots of kales. We will be growing radishes, maybe some turnips. I really want to get Swiss chard going again. But kales, Swiss chard, collards, the Brussels sprouts, lettuces will be huge. Right now it's way too hot for lettuce. So we will be doing a lot more of the lettuces. I'll have quite a bit of nasturtium going, keeping that going all winter long. And those were great in the winter. And then we'll have some other things. So right now what I'm doing, I've talked over this in the past, but because I have the GreenStalks, basically what I have, so I have 2 towers worth of the large, the regular GreenStalk containers, and then 1 tower of the leaf. So the leaf has 7 things and the regular has 5. And what I've done, because I didn't have them all out there at once, they're mix and matched right now. So I have 1 tower that has 4 large and 1 small. I have 2 towers that have 1 small on the bottom, then 3 large and 2 small at the top. Now, I may be switching this out. I know I'm going to switch out how my strawberries are done because I don't like them at the bottom. They're growing too long actually and dragging on the ground. So I'm going to be moving all that stuff up and rearranging that stuff come fall because I'm going to have to revamp all my soil this fall. Because I did not revamp it in the spring, and being into containers, this is going to be me prepping it for fall. Will be getting it also ready for next spring. I am going to be switching some of this layout around, but I wanted to have down here kind of what my plan is, kind of how many spots I have. Each tier has 6 pockets, so I can grow, I think it's 114 different plants. Now I do multiples of one type of plant, and I try to keep some of my herbs going, and we'll see how those do. Everything really depends on how well it survives through August. After August is when I can really decide kind of what my game plan is. This is also the time where I get to start thinking about doing like cilantro and stuff like that. Things will grow better right now for the fall and winter than it did for me in the spring because our weather was so funky. So that's what we're going to sit here and kind of go over and do. And so since I know I have 6 pockets per tier, I'm going to be writing down what I'm going to have in what. So I'll do like 3 kale, 6 mustards. I almost forgot mustard greens. Can't do that. Can't forget that. So I'm going to pull out my seeds and I'm going to start going. And the way you know when to start things is you're going to look at your seed packet and you're going to go through and you're going to pick what where your last frost is, or first frost, where your estimated first frost is. I always get that messed up to saying them. So where your estimated first frost is, you're going to look up what that is. You'll know your zone, what things are hardy. So in a 9B, a lot of things are hardy because we don't usually get down below 28 degrees. We did this last year, but we don't normally get down below 28 degrees. And then also, then when are you expected to have that first frost, right? When do you expect to get below 32 degrees? And so with that, then you can kind of count backwards. Well, it takes this long for it to produce. So let's say beans take 55 days. If they're going to die with the frost, maybe I'm going to give them 65 to 70 days, right? And then count that out and decide when I'm going to plant that. And so that's kind of what I'm going to sit here and start doing, is going through this. So once I get this all put together, I will come back and I'm going to show you where my plan is. Some of it will be handwritten and some of it's going to be on the computer, and I'll print it out just to make my life easier. But you'll see kind of what the plan is, and then you'll get to watch as I implement it and make changes as I need to, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes we just have to pivot. But this is the time. This is the time that you should start looking. And some of you in colder areas, you should already be looking at it, because now I have to count out and go, okay, so when am I going to start stuff inside? And when do I need to make sure I have, if I need seed starting soil and all of these things, right? Getting this stuff planned out now, making sure you're ready for it and you don't pass your window. So I'm going to get going, writing this down, going through my seeds, seeing what I have, and I'll come back to you with the final plan. Okay, so I'm back. I figured out the first part of what I'm going to do, a lot of scratching out, and then I'm going to work through the second portion with you. So first of all, I decided that I'm going to restock my planters the way that they came. So I'm going to have 5 of the regular, 5 of the regular, and 7 of the leaf. I call them large and small just so it's easier in my head. I have figured out how I'm going to organize them, what I'm growing. So in my leaf planter, I'm going to grow the 2 rows of strawberries. I think I have enough of the little babies that have started that I'll be able to do a partial of a third now. And I moved those up to the top. And then I'll plant the remainder pockets on that third with some bok choy. I'll have 6 lettuce plants in the next one. 6 mustard. Now these may have more than 6 in the pocket because I do sometimes thicker bands of cut and come again, but 6 pockets of lettuce, 6 pockets of the mustard, 6 pockets of cilantro, and I decided to do something different. I haven't actually grown pansies, but I'm going to grow pansies this year. You can eat, the petals are supposed to be edible, so I thought that would kind of be fun, especially doing some bread and things like that. Oh wait, so the next planter, we're going to do a whole tier of kale, a whole tier of collards, a whole tier of cabbage, a whole tier of Swiss chard, and then the bottom one will have some of the herbs that I have just out there. If they survive, I'll do 2 chives, my lemon thyme, rosemary, and then parsley, and I think that gives me 1 more to kind of play with. The next one will be this one. You could tell I did a lot of stretching out. So this one gets the most sun, and this is where I'm going to put my Brussels sprouts. And what I decided to do is I'm going to do 4 Brussels sprout plants, and I'm going to try 2 of the pink celery. I've never grown celery. I don't know if it's going to work well in the fall, but we're going to go for it. So 4 Brussels sprouts and 2 celery. The next one is going to have 6 peas. And then the one below that is going to be 6 nasturtium. Now the nasturtium is going to hang down, and that's going to give it a little bit of room because they stagger themselves. So it should work there. I'll do 6 nasturtium, and then the row underneath that I'm doing 6 peas, but they're offset from the nasturtium. And then my leftover peppers will be at the bottom. And then when those are done, I'm going to plant those with radishes, I think. So this bottom slot, for some reason, this is where the squirrels dig. This is where my potatoes were too. And actually, I found a bunch of really large acorns in my potatoes. So I have a feeling some of those things are the reasons why my potatoes didn't do as good. But it will be, I'll redo them and have radishes. And if I lose them, it's not going to be the end of the world. So now that I know what I want to grow, the next thing that I did was went through and pulled out the seeds and the varieties that I'm going to want to grow. I got all those out, and I'll start separating those out by when I'm going to start them. The next thing I did was went through and I put down my first estimated frost, which is November 28th. And then I wrote down, that's a Tuesday. So because it's a Tuesday, I just wrote down every Tuesday after that going into August. And so I know, as it says, when I need to transplant stuff out or when I need to start seeds, I can easily just write it down here. And this is going to help me kind of make my plan for when I actually need to start seeds. So what I'm going to do at this point is show you kind of my process. So Swiss Giants pansies are an annual. It says start seeds indoors in very early spring or late summer for fall blooms. Grow in full sun to partial shade, likes cool, moist, woodsy soil, cool to cold temps. Occasionally self sows. So, I want to do a little bit more research on this particular one, but with this being saying late summer, if I'm going to do late summer, I would sow those probably September 5th and then see what they do. So that's what I'm going to do is, let's see. My next question is, do they need light? Actually, it says start them inside. So I'm going to do August 29th, actually. And we're going to start inside. Start pansies. So that's going to be August 29th. Chinese pink celery. It says 8 to 12 weeks ahead of last frost date. Ahead of last frost date. Doesn't say anything about growing these in the fall, and I feel like this needs quite a bit of time. So I'm actually going to start these at the same time, August 29th. We're also going to start celery, and that's going to be an experiment, and we'll see how it goes. My Brussels sprouts, I actually need to get going here very soon. Oh, I only decided to do 2. That's right. So I'm going to do the red Rubine Brussels sprout, and I'm going to do the Groninger Brussels sprout. And try those. I'll do 2 of each of those. These say best planted in midsummer for a fall harvest. So I'm going to start these actually coming up here pretty quickly. I think I'm going to do these on August 15th inside. I want to say these take 90 days. So that's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Yeah. So I'm going to do August 15th. For Brussels sprouts. This allows me to start them inside, and then I can move them out when I am ready for them outside. So cabbage, the only cabbage I think I decided to grow. Oh, I think I need to pull out another cabbage. I'm probably going to pull out one more cabbage. But I really did like this one last time, and it's the Voyagio de Verona. So we enjoyed this, and so I'm going to go ahead and try this one in the fall. This one says it's frost hardy and heat and cold tolerant. That's kind of why I chose this particular one. So it says prefers cool weather and ample even moisture. Sow seeds or set transplants into rich soil. Time planting for spring or fall harvest. So this particular one All right, so I don't want this. I'm not expecting this to grow into a big head. It didn't grow into a big head for me over the winter. I know I need to start it earlier than I did last year. Um, I did just cut the leaves off and stuff, and it worked for me. But I think I'm gonna start this one indoors in September. So I'm going to say September 12th is going to be cabbage. Okay, now I'm going to look at all of my kale, and I'll show you what I am growing for my kale. Lettuce. Okay. So for kale, I'm doing the blue curled Scotch kale again. I'm going to do scarlet kale again. And I'm going to do, this one's considered a cabbage, but I'm going to do this one. It's the dino kale. And then the Russian red or ragged jack kale. So I'm going to do all of these. Direct seed or transplant 2 to 4 weeks in spring or 6 weeks in fall before last frost date. Okay, so I'm gonna start these in September as well. This one says 8 weeks in the fall. That one says 8 weeks, that one says 6 weeks, and that one doesn't say anything. So I'm going to try these September 12th as well. And we'll see what they do. And I'm just going through and I'm writing down when I'm starting it on the date. Okay, so my mustard. So these say they're tolerant of heat and frost, but best planted in cool of spring or fall conditions. I am not going to do these until I'm going to direct sow these outside, and I will do these probably October 10th, 7 weeks before last frost. And I'm going to say direct sow. Okay, another item that I'm going to do is this Sugar Daddy peas. They say they grow in bushy semi-dwarf vines, and they take 60 to 65 days. Or planted in later summer for a fall harvest. So I'm going to direct sow these hopefully come, depending on the heat, I'm going to gauge that, direct sow peas on September 12th. We're going to gauge what the temperature is before I actually do that though. I am going to start my moss curled parsley. Yeah, moss curled parsley. I'm going to start those inside with the Brussels sprouts. Gives them time to get acclimated and fully grown. The next is going to be the Swiss chard. These are some older rainbow Swiss chard, and I got the magenta Swiss chard as well. So days until maturity is 45 on this one. I'm going to direct sow these outside. And I'm going to do these, this is mid-summer, early spring to mid-summer. So I'm going to direct sow these come September 12th again. Okay. And then our collards, I'm going to do two different varieties. I have Vates, which is old seed that was already low germination back in 2020. And then Georgia's Southern again. These are tolerant of heat and cold. And it says plant early fall for a late fall harvest. So I'm going to plant these early fall. See, it's so hard to figure out. I think I'm going to do these also, but I'm going to start these inside as with the kale and cabbage on September 12th. They do not want to be out in the heat though, so I am not going to direct sow them out until I am for sure that they are ready. Or pretty darn confident. The bok choy, I'm going to wait to do these until October 10th. That's going to be with the mustard, and I will direct sow them. Next is going to be the lettuce. I only have 6 pockets of lettuce I'm going to be doing, but I'm going to be doing all these different varieties. So I have Paris Island Cuss, the it's kind of like a romaine style lettuce, a butter crunch lettuce, Bronze Beauty, which I really like that one, Merlot, and Florentulus. I don't know if you can pronounce that. Good for you, because I can't do it. So I just think it's pretty. So I'll be doing these. I'm going to put these out with the mustard and bok choy unless something changes. And I'll direct sow. I don't think I actually made room for this. I changed my mind. I was going back and forth if I wanted to grow poppies, breadseed poppies, because I think they're pretty and they would be fun. But then I found the peas, and I didn't think I had the right peas, and I remembered the cabbage, and yeah. So I'm not going to do the poppies this time. The cilantro, it requires cool conditions, but it takes a little bit of frost. I'm going to do these also in October. Again, watching the weather. All of this stuff is again on your forecast, because too hot can be almost as detrimental, well, even worse than too cold. About the same. One's gonna bolt it, and it's gonna fry it or bolt it, and the other one's gonna freeze it and shrivel it. So it just depends on how you're gonna go about it. So I think the only thing I didn't figure out, did I write down nasturtium? I did not. So I'm going to start these outside. I'm going to start these outside on September 12th. Now, there's a lot of stuff staggered on this. So this is my fall planting guide. I have direct sow. I'll go back through and decide when I'm going to transplant it out. So I have when I'm starting the seeds or direct sowing, and then I'll go through and I'll do transplant out. And I just realized you can see my dirt manicure from digging up potatoes. So I'll go through and I will add that in. But the other thing I want to mention is I'm going to have a lot of time in those pockets where this pocket's empty for a little bit or this pocket's empty for a little bit. And depending on where we are with the heat is going to depend on what I do. So right now we're almost getting too hot for these green beans. They're frying out there. So I don't even think the new batch that I have going is actually going to do anything. So I'm really not going to stress about green beans right now. If in the fall I have a longer period with stuff open, then I might do some green beans. What I will do not in August, but anywhere in September or afterwards, because August I think it's pretty much going to bolt if I do it in August. But I'm going to take the little radishes and pop some in. I could do 3 in a pocket and easily have it give me a radish if it's going to be only a month. And try to still have something in the soil and have it going, but to be able to use it. No matter what, everything's always going to be watered because I do not want my soil to go hydrophobic. So even if nothing's planted, it will be watered. But that's kind of the plan for now. I know this was more sitting down and doing talkie and it's kind of different, but I wanted to make sure, and I have other videos where I've done stuff like this. But every year is kind of different. I'm learning things as we go. I'm changing things up a little bit before I plant any of this stuff. So what I'm going to have to do, which is going to be more problematic a little bit, it's going to be more of a hassle. So that's why I'm trying to keep things closer to the same dates. So as things finish, I'm going to just cut the plant off and leave the roots in the container. And then the other thing is so my soil is off the hook right now. I've got great stuff going in there. I've got worms in it. It's still growing, but I have snails living in it too. I had pincher bugs up in there. I have had the roly-polies. And what happened was in my winter storm, we had the really, really high winds, and I decided to downstack the planters. And I just laid them out on my sidewalk and had it just down. Well, we had multiple days of storms. So what must have happened in this is that the the slugs got up into the planters at that point in time. I tried to pick out anything I saw, but they must have laid eggs or whatever. Then in the midst of that, I restack it. I missed some. So now I have this huge slug population in my towers. And all summer long, I have been picking spring and summer. I could own a restaurant with slugs with how many I have pulled out of these containers. So what I'm going to do, because I didn't refresh the soil, is I'm going to downstack everything when it comes time. And my guess is going to be so my guess, I'm going to say, is in September. Because I will be direct sowing some stuff in September. So I'll gauge where I am. And I'm going to try to have whole planters refreshed. So I will try to have everything switched out from all of my leaf planters, right? All the leaf ones. reset all the soil in that, replant any of the plants that I'm keeping into the new soil. This is the only dilemma because then I might have slugs in that, but I'll be doing a thorough check. So replant whatever I'm going to into there, transplant out whatever I'm going to into there, and then direct sow whatever I'm going to plant into there. And then I'll have my leaf one done, right? Then I have my other two towers. Now those have some things that are going to last a little bit longer. So depending on where these things are going to have to be planted will depend on how I do it, because I'm gonna have peppers and just figuring out what's where and pulling stuff as I can. I want to try to do a whole planter at once. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put copper tape, if I can find my copper tape, put it around the base, and then possibly put it on some other locations. It's just hard with the concave, so we'll see how that works. I may try to put it on the watering container, because on the outside of that, because if it gets in there, it won't be able to get, like, it'll be zapped and stay. I don't know. That doesn't make sense because it'll get out of the container and go up. So I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna try to cut down the slug population. And then if I have to downstack in the winter this year again for more storms, which hopefully they won't be that bad. I don't mind the rain, but the heavy winds was a little scary. So if I have to downstack again this time around, I'm probably going to use an organic slug killer of some sort, because this it really killed the beginning part of the garden. So that's kind of the plan. But I'll be resetting the soil, redoing all that stuff as I do these planters and making everything work, which is awesome. So that's kind of where we are. So I hope that you subscribe, that you stay tuned to see what's going to happen next. Gardening is a learning experience all the time. Once you think you've got it down, then you try something else, and then you're getting that down, and something you did before failed, and it's going to happen. And growing in apartments, growing in containers, you face different obstacles than if you are growing in a big yard or on a farm or something like that. And so you're going to figure out, you're going to transition, and you'll figure it out. Just don't give up. Don't let the pests win. Figure out your feeding schedule, all the things. And also plant what you're going to eat. In all honesty, I didn't have cabbage on the list. I wasn't thinking about it because I didn't grow big heads of cabbage. But you know what? All winter long, I picked off that cabbage, and I was able to make cabbage rolls with it, and I added it to soup. So I'm like, we ate a ton of it, so why wouldn't I grow that again? So really sit down, start making your plans. I would love to hear where you are, if you've gotten your plans figured out. Now that it's the middle of July and we're getting ready to roll, we're thinking about fall and the colder weather and all those things. So, yeah, stay tuned. We'll see how this goes, and we'll get some seed starting videos coming at you soon. We'll talk to you later.